that feeling is inherent in the appearance or the object. And I really do think like the most way this is serviceable for us is in our relationships with people. I mean, we can also do that with, big things like jobs, money. You know, money's another good one, actually. That, where we're working at the level of thinking that instead of trying to, we, and you brought this up earlier, that we will go at manipulating the world instead of our own minds as to be able to create the kind of, whatever experience it is that we want. So if you're trying to, you want to have these more kind of loving feelings towards a family member or a partner or a friend or something like that, that there are these kind of worldly ways, these physical ways, which can be serviceable. Those are all can be very useful ways. It's a beautiful thing to, buy someone, whatever, whatever one of their favorite things is like if someone really does, who knows, maybe, I remember when I was in this relationship and I had sent her like, I don't know, I don't even remember how many roses. A lot of roses. A lot of roses. Totally unexpected, just some Tuesday in the middle of life. And I remember we were going out to dinner that night and so forth. And I got there and I was like, even when I saw them, I was like, whoa, that is a lot of roses, but I could see that she was like, that was nice. And I was like, wow, really? And this is before I had any of these kind of teachings. I was like, okay, well that's a first, And it turned out she had this whole narrative about like she just deplored hothouse flowers and felt so much like pain about hothouse flowers and so forth. And I got this whole like horror story of hothouse flowers. I'm like, oh, wow. All right, it'll be interesting to see how things go the rest of the night after hearing all this. And it was one of these things of where that, it's not as though that couldn't have gone another way, where she would have been really touched and really loved that and so forth. So all of those types of, physical conditions and so forth, the acts that we can take in this life can be. But that's the whole key word right there is can. There's the potential that they can. But it is simply just that. And obviously when I did that, I wasn't operating in that way. I was not approaching it or living or thinking like, yeah, there's just the potential, maybe she'll like it. I mean, it was like guaranteed, How many other times I've done something like this and, and this is the thing is that I thought, there is like absolute like adoration and affection inherent in these roses, especially when you receive 70 of them or something like that. So we do. We have the ways in which we can work with it, work with these acts that we can take care of. But fundamentally, this is all about, this whole approach is about being able to show how that way that we're flipping it around, that it's like, oh, it's that. That's what's going to really, that's what the feeling is all about. It's about those roses. The roses do it, where of course she was the one. She was the one that was going to then make that something, really adorable or whatever. And, so many ways, it's like we conceptually get this, but this is what this whole class and this whole approach is about getting to that experientially, and getting it out of this kind of conceptual framework of like, yes, I get that. But then yet, throughout the course of our days, we see each and every way that we're totally baking it into the person, that they're this, and that, oh, he always loves these cookies, get him that. And then there's the one time he like spits it out, and again and again and again. That then gets us to the point of like, okay, let me just try to apply some mindfulness to this situation, and that's what can make all the difference. Yeah. And it's funny too, because the both of you really kind of brought this up in terms of how memory really does serve for us to be able to analyze and classify an experience. You know, what are the memories that you associate, especially when it comes to feelings, your own personal, like, what is it like, you know, what creates the feeling of anger? You know, so there's on a certain level, you're going to say, well, there's the previous similar moment that was associated with that experience. You know, you're able to recognize anger in another person fundamentally because you only know that because you've experienced it yourself. And so there is being able to see that that's something that we do to actually create story, create meaning, and to be able to then actually analyze something is by doing, ooh, wow, interesting.
Isn't that what creates attachment then?
Yes, exactly.
The expectation.
Did that stop all the recording?
Yeah, yeah. Oh no, this is fine. Yeah, no, this is, should I turn this on? I don't know if that'll help. Oh, all right.
Let's unplug the heater. Would you unplug the heater?
I unplugged it, yes.
Yes, but that's exactly it, is that then that's when the attachment comes in, because the attachment forms based on our understanding, you know. So the understanding of that, whatever that story was that you created, you know, the plus minus zero, this creates a plus. You know, for me, the roses creates a plus. She showed it as a minus, you know, and that's the thing, is that I never had that story. You know, I never had that baked in. But because I had, my story was one that it was a plus, it was the thing about liking and pleasure and so forth. That is exactly why, and I did not have the experience of my attachment to it until I saw, when she showed me reality, when she actually showed me true reality, which is that that's only ever been potential, that it might be something I might like or dislike. And that will always be the case. You know, try to find a time where that's not the case with anything, you know? Yeah.
Wouldn't it be possible, though, to have something function for you to varying degrees of a certain quality? Like, but consistently that quality for your whole life?
Oh, sure, sure. To varying degrees, yeah. Absolutely. Because you could have, if you've created, they're all, you know, and no one really knows this except like a fully awakened being, as to how many impressions that you've made upon your mind about that are in this relationship, as to, oh, this and this creates something pleasurable. I mean, that's, you know, that's obviously deeply habituated, you know, in terms of, I mean, for as long, you know, with both sex and I would say probably drugs, you know, as long as there's been mead and wine and so forth, there's been an association with alcohol. And even though, as anyone who's ever been addicted, you know, and confronted that really, is that, yeah, you can keep going. That is so deeply habituated as to whatever your personal story is with it, you know, that is pleasurable or that's not pleasurable. And to the varying degrees, yeah, it could easily go on a lifetime. And honestly to say, and that's unfortunately the case, because that's what can keep us deluded for a lifetime that way. Because someone could say to me, it's like, you know, I do, you know, I make the lasagna, he loves the lasagna, you know, man, I might change it up a little or whatever, yeah, you know, it's not as good as the other version. I mean, you can just take that example and like blow it out to anything that could keep you going along with that, oh yeah, this actually does create that. And that's something that, you know, it's good that you point that out, because it speaks more to the urgency, you know, the urgency of being able to recognize how that's happening. Yeah, no, it's a very good point. There, and that gets right to the core of our experience of suffering. And fundamentally, you know, we get, in Buddhism, there are, I feel now at this point that there are countless definitions of suffering. Just choose your favorite one depending on the day. You know, but one could be, you know, the experience of resistance. To suffer is to resist. And fortunately, you know, the Buddha really got at this in the first and second Noble Truths, where when he woke up and, you know, said that this kind of life is suffering and it has a cause, you know, that was the, and to be maybe even more personal about it would be that the unenlightened life is suffering. I don't think that we can actually say that, you know, that there is a particular life that is self-existently suffering. There's a perspective there, there's a subtlety to that, to someone, because someone, you know, someone who has a more awakening sensibility of how things are really working, as they continue to awaken, their suffering does become less and less. But for us in this, you know, that are dealing with this on a day-to-day level, it really is that you're looking at, because of the fact that we're trying to understand the reality of our suffering, you know, and this is what the Vipassana is doing. You know, it's looking at how is it that I'm thinking and experiencing this. And fortunately, when the Buddha mentioned this about, and it has a cause, now we can take that and say, okay, well, let's look at, is there a causal relationship? Is there a causal relationship within the feeling itself? Is there some cause and effect going on in that? Or is the cause and effect coming from me? Is it subjective? You know, is it the one who is perceiving and experiencing this feeling? You know, and like I said, you know, we can conceptually all agree on that kind of right off the get-go, but then, you know, we know how we're really living. You know, we know how we're really living. I thought, you know, the cause of an awesome night out was baked into that rose, those red roses. There's no doubt. I thought there was a cause and effect in those roses. You know, and that's something where, and this is the thing, is that, you know, oh, maybe it should have been, you know, orchids, because she loves orchids, you know? But see, that would keep me right in the same game, because then she did. You know, I got her an orchid, and she loved that. I was like, yes, you know? And then, you know, then it comes around, and you get something else, and she's like, orchids aren't doing for me so much anymore, you know? And this is just the constant. This is the constant thing. So this is very helpful for us, is the moment that it was like, oh, okay, we know that the unenlightened life is suffering and there's a cause for it. Now we can take that and say, all right, let's take this into the experience of feelings and look for this causal relationship in it. How is it really working for me? So let's do that. Let's do that in meditation. Yes. Find your favorite posture. Right? It does. Thank goodness. Yeah, this is almost like you guys get to be your own mental surgeons right now. Like you're going to examine your condition and investigate the symptoms, Get a strong sense of the whole picture. And then you'll really be able to diagnose what the underlying affliction really is. What's the real cause? Okay. So feeling nice and comfortable in your seat or lying down. Body feels relaxed and alert. And we begin simply by listening to the room, just listening to your life. Nothing else you need to do, but just be. And let the inner commentator rest for a little while. If a distraction arises, gently let it go. Feel good about letting distraction go because you're clear again. Relax on your exhale and return to simply listening. Pure, bare attention. And begin to draw your focus into your body by placing your attention on any physical sensations that you feel. Wherever they may arise, just observe it. It is simply a sensation. No need to make it any more or less. And if you do notice any particular sensation that feels painful or has any tension, draw your inhale into that area and release the tension on the out-breath. And doing that a few times until you feel that tension dissipate. And begin to bring your attention down towards your seat and your connection to the floor, placing your full focus on the connection between your body and the seat and the ground. Wherever you feel that contact, focusing only on that. Feeling the warmth of connection, the fullness of it. And as you focus on this feeling of connection to the earth, notice whether you feel interested in it, or indifferent, or maybe even disinterested. And is this feeling of liking, disliking, or indifference changing from moment to moment? Now expand your awareness out to the rest of the body, giving attention to whatever physical sensations arise. And with bare attention, notice whether you can remain an impassive witness and just watch that sensation arise, abide, and then dissolve. So once again, identify another physical sensation and notice your response to it, your feeling of plus, minus, or zero is what you're investigating. Usually when we experience a pleasant or unpleasant feeling, we believe that a sensation that preceded it is the cause of that feeling. Is that causal relationship something that exists as an inherent part of nature, or is it something that you create? Notice that as long as you focus on the so-called cause of your pleasure or displeasure, whether that feeling persists, and then notice what happens if you shift your attention from the so-called cause, the physical sensation, only to your subjective response. If you focus only on the feeling of liking, disliking, or indifference, does that break the so-called causal relationship between the two? What is the nature of that feeling of pleasure, displeasure, or indifference? Does it change as you examine it? Does it dissolve in front of your watchful gaze? See if you can recognize the difference between plus, minus, 0, but without preferring that you experience one or the other. Simply experience the feeling without identifying with it or without wishing that it would stay or go. Observe your feeling nakedly without superimposing a story, conceptual explanation, or any attempt to understand it. Just observe it with bare attention. And as you place your focus on another physical sensation, observe whether the intensity of the feeling that you experience of liking, disliking, or indifference change as you examine it. Does the intensity change as you place your focus on it? If this feeling had some absolute nature, would the more you examine it, reveal it more intensely? Does exploring a feeling with bare attention increase or decrease the magnitude of it? Now try to locate an unpleasant feeling in the body and do just the opposite of bare attention and conceptually elaborate it. Tell yourself, this is really uncomfortable. I don't like it. I don't think I can take this much longer. I hope this will end soon. Does that change the experience of the feeling? Does the sense of discomfort become greater or less? Are the physical sensations themselves the true source of either your pleasure or discomfort? You can begin to release that focus, deepen your breath, and gently open your eyes when you're ready. You know, one aspect of this that is really, kind of initially gets my goat sometimes, but because I keep thinking like, man, maybe there's got to be another way about this, which is that I keep wanting to think like there's another way in which this will just eliminate pain, that if I really get to the mental depth and clarity of this, no more pain. Man, wouldn't that be nice? Beyond nice. But as it turns out, obviously, a lot more realized people well before me that gave that a very good go. And as it turns out, it seems to be the fact that, being a human being means you're going to have pain. You could say that almost in a way kind of defines an aspect of being a human. And that, so this really, doing these meditations and applying this kind of insight throughout the course of a day or a night it's not as though you're not going to be feeling any more pain. And that's where the distinction comes in between pain and suffering, because it's another thing to then suffer about the fact that you're experiencing pain. And we all probably have a very strong sense of that. I mean, you get upset at the mere fact of, be it emotional, physical, mental. And fortunately what this does is that it works it works on that root, that causal level. You know, part of it, when you think about it, if we didn't have the experience that we have with pain, we actually wouldn't know how to take care of our bodies and minds. You know, it's because of our experience of pain is how we know how to take care of ourselves in that way. I mean, there are conditions about this and so forth about how, I can't remember what the medical, maybe you can look that up. There's a medical condition about where someone had the sensation, she couldn't have the sensation or sensation of touch, you know, or, you know, be it a man or a woman, was so discreet that this one individual, she could like literally poke her eye because she didn't have the sense of touch, wasn't acute, you know. And obviously we have this on the most basic level of fire. You know, it's because if you take away that sense of touch and heat, you just fry yourself. You know, so there's all these ways in which actually, you know, it is through the experience of pain that we learn how to take care of ourselves in this world and in this life. And it certainly is something that, as we discussed earlier, because it's so adaptive, pain, that, you know, being able to have that moment of being able to observe it, watch it arise and it abide and it to fade away, gives us something to actually create a true experience of freedom, you know, at the deepest level. Because this is really where the big attachment is, you know, with the body. And then, of course, with the mind as well, to be depressed and so forth. But this is the thing about it. Whatever the pain might be, being able to watch it in this way is, it's as though there's almost no other more fundamental practice. I mean, you can do that. Obviously, you can do the same thing with something that is perceived as being enjoyable. But it just seems to be the more daily process for us. One of the, for those who've been taking Darren's class on Thursday nights, one of the teachers he works with, Chula Dasa, has this great formula that is really helpful. You know, it's always great, like if you can like get some Buddhist math going, you know, for those when it feels like you really like, make it clear. I want this to be perfectly clear. So the formula is pain times resistance equals suffering. So if resistance is 0, then what does that equate to for suffering? What does suffering equate to? Yeah. 0, thank goodness. But what about pain? Pain is still there, right? Yeah, the value of pain, you know, both numerically and metaphorically, pain is still there. Pain is still a part of the equation. But you see in which the way to nullify the suffering in that sense. And it is true. I mean, at a certain level, you know, being able to adjust our conceptual approach to resistance, because that's really what's happening at that level, that fortunately then correlates to then our experience of pain being able to adjust. You know, so if we're going to work at this kind of conceptual level of it, but then fortunately it's going to equate into what we experience day in and day out in life. And, you know, getting to what, you know, you brought up earlier, Doug, about attachment, which obviously is it's the other side of the coin from resistance or aversion. And I think this is the thing for me that I really, where it starts to really gain traction, which is that, you know, if you release your attachment to a feeling or feelings, period, does that mean you're going to be cold, this cold person, or uncaring person? Or you'll become so. Or for instance, if you stop taking care, that you'll stop taking care of something you love, like maybe it's your car or something like that. You know, you really, you know, you give up this, you're like, I'm free of being grasping to, you know, to feelings and so forth. So, you know, I have no need for this. I have no need to take care of this. Or if you give up your attachment for feeling for your family members or friends or something, will it be then that you would stop, you know, telling them that you love them? And this is just it. When you're feeling of love, and let's put it at that level, is dependent on what someone says or does, will you stop loving? And that's, you know, it's very important. It can be very, very, very useful to look at yourself in those moments, you know, and to ask those kind of questions, because what you might find out, and this is to see what the truth of your experience is that if you do let go of grasping, that you don't let go of loving. That doesn't have to be the case. So on a certain level, you get free of the attachment to the feeling, but you still have the feeling. And it's being free of this kind of obsessive, compulsive, delusional aspect that we have of that the feeling is in the appearance, you know, because at a certain level we think that's happening, and then we create story, we create a narrative to that so we can understand it, and then right at that moment it's as though the story and the narration the narrative of it creates for us the grasp. I know what this is. It is this. You know, and there it is, like right there. I've got it fully within my clutches. But if you realize that story is constantly changing, and that the happiness or unhappiness that is associated with it is not in that appearance, then, especially when it comes to loving a friend or family member, then you can be fully present to the person and the feeling. And that's getting amazing then. because you can be fully present to that person and the feeling without having aversion when they change. You know? When the feeling changes, when the person changes, when you change, you know, then you're getting in the flow. You're really getting in the flow. I mean, people certainly know this who've been in long-term relationships, marriages, partnerships, that, yeah, things don't feel the same. You know, I don't feel the same way towards this person. They appear not to feel the same way towards me, you know. And being able to recognize that there's that resistance to what is seemingly the natural flow of reality. You know, for those who have the insight and the awareness of it, is to be able that when that happens, and that doesn't necessarily mean that the relationship will continue to look as it's looked for however many years. But what might actually end up happening is having two human beings who are fully present to each other and fully present to their feelings as human beings and are really there for each other because they're not caught up in their own mishigas as to how this change seems to be, you know, just wreaking havoc on all aspects of her life. And it's something that is completely and utterly personal, you know, completely and utterly personal, to be able to put that into practice, you know, as to watching yourself as to, oh, you know, that's the story I put to it, so there's the grip, you know, so what can you do to loosen up your grip on it? Is it going to be the fact of saying, well, this is a changing thing anyhow, it's going to change anyhow, so it doesn't mean that and that's the whole thing. It's not as though you then are trying to just eradicate all feeling. You know, that's the beauty, that's what I love so much about it, is it drops you right into the present with what's really happening, and the feelings are there, and you can move and work with them now, and not just be at their will. You know, we know what that's like, to just completely be overcome by anger, or overcome by some type of deep longing or yearning or something like that. And who's that all about anyway, in those moments? You know? And this is the thing, I mean, this is the thing about where doing these, asking these questions, whatever question you can in the moment of when it's happening, you know, in the moment it's happening, as close as you can get to that, or if not, just a few moments afterwards, can really help you to be not only more fully yourself, but just much more fully alive. You know, really where it's like those times where you feel like, man, I don't really want to be a part of this reality. If this is reality going on right now, I don't want any part of it. And being able to really shift that mindset so that whatever's happening, you know, you're able to be fully there with it, move with it, and to be the most beautiful thing that we really can be, which is to be fully human. You know, fully present and human in any given situation. So yeah, feelings work. They work. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for coming, especially after Thanksgiving. The Thanksgiving break or holiday and all that. And then next week, you know, yeah, next week it will get, it'll definitely get deeper. We're going to get in the space of the mind. Yeah, which is always an amazing place to be in. So thank you very much. I'll see you next week.